Welcome to The Download, a quarterly update on the latest in economic development across Greater Sacramento, hosted by the Greater Sacramento Economic Council President and CEO, Barry Broome. The Download with GSEC is your source for all things economic development. Join us as we disrupt the normal conversation and take the Greater Sacramento region to the next level.
Hi, I'm Barry Broome. I'm the President and CEO of the Greater Sacramento Economic Council. 43 CEOs, 19 communities, one strategy for the Greater Sacramento region. Later on, we're going to have a panel on the mobility center being developed here in our region under the leadership of SMUD, Los Rios Community College, Sacramento State, UC Davis, and many others. Arlen Orchard is going to have a roundtable discussion with Vice Mayor Eric Guerra and County Supervisor Phil Cerna. Phil also serves on the CARB board, the California Air Resource Board, and Eric chairs our Air Quality Management District. So both of them have a dual role as local policymakers, but also they play an important role in reducing carbon in our economy. So this is kind of giving you the download on what's going on in economic development. So why are we developing this mobility center? What is economic development? What is the purpose of the organization? A lot of people think of our organization as, well, they market and recruit businesses to the community. We look at that as a service. The purpose of the organization is to drive a regional economy that moves towards tradable sectors, that coexists with the community, both environmentally and from an economic equity standpoint. So as you know, our community has been growing quite well the last few years, but we're leaving too many people at the bottom. Homeless has doubled just in the last 2 or 3 years. So an economic development strategy is how you collectively elevate the entire economy, generate wealth across the board, stabilize communities, stabilize people, and stabilize families. And you do that with a series of services. So let's talk about the mobility center, right? California is the world leader in reducing carbon from the mobility sector. In fact, the California Air Resource Board is as responsible for the success of Tesla as Elon Musk himself. So our state has been rapidly building new technology and new products for generations, and now electric vehicles, connected vehicles, autonomous vehicles, and unique mobility devices like the Bird and Jump, you're starting to see all over the state, mirroring the history of California ingenuity. So here's the question in our community, which in 2008 was hit harder by the recession than any community in the western half of the United States. How are we building an economy that coexists with our environment, coexists with our community culture, fits inside the policy apparatus of California, which is very difficult because we're hard on businesses, and then 4, actually generates the kind of jobs and investment that will keep our college graduates, but elevate our young people out of the neighborhoods. And we think the California Mobility Center is a perfect example of an economic development platform. So let's just talk about platforms, right? What are the platforms in Sacramento? Right now it's government, healthcare, and government leads to healthcare, because that's another public invested economic model. And we also have food and agriculture. And those have pretty much been our platforms. We had a history in aerospace, defense, and semiconductor, but those industries dried up, they commoditized. Semiconductor is offshoring, aerospace defense is now seeking tax havens in the South. So you have to constantly recycle your economy around new ideas and new things. Now, when you look at our mobility center, we have some of the best engineers in that industry already at Sacramento State University. Our community college system, headed up by Los Rios, Chancellor Brian King, already does a great job at training people for hardware technologies, right? Hardware technologies are usually technologies that require materials, mechanical engineers, and electrical engineers, the kind of engineers we produce. UC Davis also has a lot of talent in the automotive sector, whether it's powertrain, policy. We have a very large engineering school. Dan Sperling is one of the leaders in the conversation around the world on how modern mobility is going to work. Dan is on faculty at UC Davis, but he's also a member of the California Air Resource Board. So you take the talent in your community, you build it around an expertise, you move that talent towards an investment model, and then those are the jobs of the future. And successful communities are always moving towards jobs of the future. So we believe that the Sacramento region, with its proximity to CARB, the California Air Resource Board, our community's fascinated by mobility. You got to build something around the community's culture. we have the engineering and the capacity to develop this technology, and we think it's going to be one of our jobs for the future initiatives. So I know I'm going to wind up by yielding this time to my executive committee member and one of my founders, Arlen Orchard. Also, City of Sacramento is one of our founders. Daryl Steinberg serves on our board, and Sacramento County is one of our founders. Nav Gill serves on our board. So they're directors, investors, thinkers, leaders, policymakers, and I know you're going to be very excited to hear from Arlen, Phil, and Eric on their vision for mobility in the Sacramento region.
Up next, Arlen Orchard, CEO of SMUD, and the leader who has jumped in with both feet to ensure that the California Mobility Center gets off the ground, sits down with two staunch supporters of the center, Vice Mayor Eric Guerra and Supervisor Phil Cerna, to discuss what the center is, what it promises to bring to the region, and how it will change the look of future mobility for the world.
So hello and welcome to The Download. I'm Arlen Orchard, I'm the CEO of SMUD, and I'm really thrilled today to be able to have this conversation around the California Mobility Center and what it means for not only the Sacramento region, but the state of California, the nation, and the world when it comes to the future of mobility solutions. And I've got two big champions here of the Mobility Center with me right now, and I'd like to introduce them before we start our conversation. So I've got Vice Mayor of Sacramento, Eric Guerra, and I have Sacramento County Supervisor Phil Cerna, who also serves on the California Air Resources Board. And that's important because the California Air Resources Board is really the center of the most far-reaching, progressive climate change and clean transportation policy, not only in California, but in the world. So it's exciting to have both of these folks here. And we're going to talk about the California Mobility Center. And let me just put that in context for you all. So the California Mobility Center is a public-private consortium. It is will be comprised of private institutions, governments, universities, venture capitalists, automotive companies, technology companies, and others who are interested in this new future. It is intended to be a hub for funding, testing, and commercializing the future mobility solutions that are going to be necessary as we move to a more clean transportation future. So let's go ahead and take a deeper dive into the California Mobility Center. And I've introduced my guests. So both of you have been intricately involved in not only supporting the center, but also supporting a low carbon future for the region. So can you tell me a little bit about why the center is important to you?
Well, thanks for the opportunity, Arlen. It's great to be here with my good friend Supervisor Cerna, who also I think is, as you mentioned, leading the way at the state. But much like Phil and I, graduates of Sac State, longtime Sacramentans, and first in my family to go to college. But unfortunately, like many of those engineers who graduated from Sac State, after they got their diploma, they'd get on a bus and take off to the Bay Area or get on the train and go look for other opportunities. And through a cup of coffee, just kind of like today, I ran into Barry Broome, and we were talking about, wouldn't it be great if we can harness all of that talent from Sac State, from the students at Los Rios, and create a pipeline here for the future jobs of manufacturing and technology here in Sacramento. That led to an amazing trip that Phil and I took to Germany with Sac State, our Air District experts, the folks at Greater Sacramento Economic Council, to really look at the innovations happening about this public-private partnership, looking at academics, and seeing how it actually can come to fruition to change a manufacturing town that had once lost its manufacturing into a place of startups for zero-emission technology. So exciting stuff.
Yeah, first of all, let me express my thanks to you, Arlen, for SMUD's leadership and investment on this front, and certainly the leadership by our Vice Mayor Eric Guerra, who's been very much the kind of the plow blade, if you will, on this initiative. And let me start by saying the other thing that the Vice Mayor and I have in common is that I'm privileged and honored to be the parent to his godson, to his son,
right.
my godson. And I want to make mention of that because that's really, for me, kind of why we're talking about this. We're talking about the future, and we're talking about the intersection of so many different objectives that we have at the local governmental level, at the state governmental level. Carbon reduction certainly at the forefront, climate change, and how do we achieve our objectives there. But certainly, and I know you're going to hear from Barry Broome later about the details of this, but certainly the objective of diversifying our local economy too. For so long, this has been a government town. I think many of us understand that. And after the Great Recession, we learned a number of important but somewhat painful lessons. And the one that really, I think, resonates with most of us in local government is the need to really diversify the base of our employment, the base of our academic ties to employment. And that's why this is such a great intersection of all those objectives: reducing greenhouse gas emissions, diversifying the economy, grooming that relationship with academia locally, and ensuring that we have a future here, not just in Sacramento and California, but across the world when it comes to innovative mobility.
Great, thank you. And I appreciate both of your leadership in supporting this. I think we all agree that it's a really important initiative for our region. So Phil, just to kind of level set for everyone, talk a little bit about what future mobility actually is.
Well, I think it's somewhat self-describing, but really the future of mobility has to be about getting us off fossil fuels, right? I think the policy objective is probably very well known here in California and across the world, that we are looking at probably our greatest challenge, and that's to address climate change. So how do we do that? Well, we know, for instance, that in the mobility sector, here in California, just this one state out of our entire union, people are driving 800 million miles a day. We're going through about 29 million gallons of gasoline a day. We also know that the greenhouse gas emissions that are affecting our climate are coming mostly from that sector. So we have, a critical goal in front of us to reduce those greenhouse gas emissions, reduce the criteria pollutants that contribute to smog and ozone. And the way we're going to do that, the way we're going to achieve that most important public health goal, is by looking to electric propulsion, looking to fuel cell technology, hydrogen fuel cell technology. And as you mentioned in the intro, the California Air Resources Board is not just leading the state and our country, but the world when it comes to policy setting, rulemaking, and resource allocation to achieve those objectives.
It's great. And when you think about mobility and what future mobility is, it's a whole host of technologies. And the thing that excites me about it is that it actually has something for everybody. It's not just you've got to get in your new electric vehicle. It's autonomous vehicles. It's jump bikes, which I think are fantastic.
It's car sharing. It's
all those things.
It's how do you move from point A to point B, and how do you do that more efficiently? How do you do it with least cost objectives in mind? How do you do that certainly without emitting even more carbon into our atmosphere?
And you can start to make sure that you're providing business solutions through private investment into areas that we know we need additional help in disadvantaged communities, last mile solutions, et cetera. So I think this is really exciting for the region. The other thing that I think is a huge opportunity when you think about how it can grow the Sacramento economy is there's been $110 billion of investment in advanced mobility solutions since 2010. About half of that has come in the Bay Area, which is, I think, interesting. The other interesting thing is that number continues to grow year over year. So investment is accelerating. So I think it's a huge opportunity for our region to really take advantage of that. What's interesting is a lot of the innovation has been happening in Silicon Valley, right next door to us. We're neighbors and part of the whole ecosystem. But a lot of the prototyping and testing is being done in centers in the Midwest and the East. So having something in the West kind of address some of this is really important. So maybe Eric, you can talk a little bit about why Sacramento and what's been missing and why this is important for us.
You mentioned an important part, that the Silicon Valley obviously has taken the dominant lead in a lot of the software development. But Sacramento has a history of manufacturing, a long history of manufacturing, that even on the side of mobility, Siemens came in here in the 80s, and now they're producing electric trains for everyone. But even around that, we produce a number of things in Sacramento, so we're no strangers to manufacturing. We haven't pieced all of the ingredients together to make that right recipe. And creating a technology center that looks at not only just prototyping, but prototyping to market-ready products. We're not interested in creating a mobility center here that makes fancy showroom-type things that we can parade to different conventions and whatnot. We're thinking about what can we produce here that gets to every middle-class American, anybody who wants to use these products to improve our community. And as you mentioned earlier, it's something, we're looking at our solutions here that are solutions for everyone. One thing we found in Sacramento, that once we started connecting all of these pieces, something more innovative mobility solution has also started to increase, which is known as walking. You know, because we provide more options and more techniques, people are actually looking at multiple options. So I think the big key thing here is that we're missing a technology center that can provide opportunities for businesses, investors, and more importantly, pipelines for workforce here in many of our disadvantaged communities like South Sacramento, areas that we represent, that are looking for good opportunities in the future of our state.
And as I couldn't agree more, it really is about what are those future jobs that are going to fuel our economy going forward. So you mentioned a little bit earlier about your trip to Germany, and we have an important partner, international partner in this, which is PIM Motion out of Aachen, Germany. And they're an automotive research institute and prototyping company out of Aachen, Germany, a spinoff of Aachen University, which is one of the leading automotive universities in the world. And they've done a lot with some big names. People might recognize them: BMW, Porsche, Daimler, Ford, locally grown, U.S. made. So can, Phil, maybe you can talk a little bit tell us a little bit more about PIM and why they're an important component to making the center successful.
Well, what really interested me and I think is really the reason why we're going back to continue to groom the relationship with PIM is how they successfully brought both industry and academia together to really foster this great working relationship to do the things that Vice Mayor Guerra was stating earlier in terms of having these factories that are really they're located right next door on academic campuses, and the intended use of purpose of these factories is not just to spit out widgets, it's to actually innovate. Really, that's the real key verb here in terms of what we're trying to achieve. It's not just trying to bring factories here, it's really to bring some momentum, if you will, for that in a model that's being tested and is very successful in Europe, that brings together academia and industry to push the envelope on innovation when it comes to mobility. One of the things that really fascinates me about the prospect of the California Mobility Center is the fact that we have established policy and an intention to continue to contribute resources to achieve the greenhouse gas reduction goals that I stated earlier. But to do that, we have to have things like a greater range from our battery technology. You don't get those types of innovative kind of plateaus and the continuation of the technology without some real dedicated investment, both from the academic side in terms of looking at the prospect of new technologies that can be deployed, but also the investment side. And that's really why we're going back for a second trip to, again, try and draw that investment and that model here.
Great. I think exciting thing about PIM is it has a proven track record, which I think is important to give credibility to the new center. When you think about it, they've only been around since 2012. You've seen the emergence of 3 companies, more than that, but 3 big companies come out of it: Ego, Velocity, and Street Scooter. Those companies have seen $400 million or 400 million euros to get it right, of revenues and generated 1,500 jobs. So they've got a proven track record. So I'm hoping we have the opportunity to leverage their knowledge, leverage what makes Sacramento special to really replicate or exceed those kind of standards. So it's really, I think, exciting to have them here. So, but the partnership, the importance of this partnership is it goes far beyond just PIM, Aachen, but it also takes, I guess it takes a village when we get down to it, and it takes a lot of local and regional support to get this done. So Eric, maybe you could talk a little bit about the importance of our regional partners.
You know, the strength in our region isn't just the history of its manufacturing and whatnot, but it's the human capital. And being able to harness all our human capital for the region. And the fact that we have partners like UC Davis, Sac State, Los Rios Community College District, Valley Vision, Greater Sacramento Economic Development Council, ATOS, who's already doing a lot of this work on autonomous research. You know, obviously we have PEM Motion, but Enertech Capital also to looking at the investment side of it. All of these minds coming together and creating a technology center so that we can help the future engineers and innovators focus their energy on the production of new ideas. That's what we want people to focus on. We want all that human capital that's coming out of Sacramento to focus their energy on the future ideas of the future. And we can take care of the infrastructure, the logistics, so that they can focus on being innovators. This partnership here, this consortium, again, we're not reinventing the wheel. What we saw in Germany when we went there was that at some point the big OEMs, you know, caught the message and said, we got to join this consortium. And they started their own coalition of efforts. It's bringing people together. As you said, it takes a village.
So I'm really excited about this, and it you know, and the center will be doing some things that are different that Aachen isn't doing, but are important to the future of mobility. So one of the things that makes Sacramento so unique is it's the headquarters for CARB. It's the place where policy and regulations of the future get made. So I think this is a great opportunity for this center to help inform the decisions that policymakers are going to make around this.
And let's not forget too that this is really an effort that takes investment and innovation in the mobility sector, and simultaneously tries to groom that again with partners, all the partners that Vice Mayor Guerra mentioned. But it's also really about making sure that we're responding and grooming the market too. We have policy objectives, very clear policy objectives. We have a couple of executive orders from the previous administration, the Brown administration, that made it very clear, and it's been set in motion now, that we have some hard numbers to achieve by certain dates in terms of the amount of zero-emission vehicles that we need to have here in California and across the country and across the world. This is the kind of center that is going to be perfectly situated to respond to that goal.
I think it's exciting because what we want is to have regulations and policies that support the innovation and support the future of mobility, and support innovation and new businesses. At the same time, we want to make sure we're addressing those important societal goals like climate reduction, safety, and
Air
other
quality.
things. So air quality. So I think we've got a big opportunity here to test and validate new policy and regulations to make sure they're actually accomplishing what they're intended to.
It really is kind of policy and regulation as a kind of a very unique incentive for market growth and investment. And you don't really hear all those terms in the same sentence very often, but again, here in California, in Sacramento in particular, I think we're really trying to be the leader globally in terms of how best to exploit in a good way, positive way, the objectives again of greenhouse gas reduction, looking at a better relationship between industry and academia, and diversifying our economy.
The also strength that we have, I mean, we do have an amazing amount of engineers and talent here and folks in our area, but you got to think about the 5th largest economy in the world. The policymakers who are coming here, their staff all live in the region. All of the people who are involved in setting these goals, they live here in our community. So taking full advantage of even the policy folks who are here on a day-to-day basis. Maybe our state elected officials, once recess happens, they go back to their district, but our policy people stay here year around. So making sure that we create this organic structure here and we lead the market of the future here in Sacramento. One quick example is we, at the Air District, chair of the Air District, started supporting our local schools by buying electric buses to improve the area, improve our air quality for the area. But we bought them from Vancouver. We should be producing those electric buses or that technology here for the policies that we're developing right here.
Great. I wanted to touch on, you mentioned a lot of our local partners, but you mentioned another important partner with a proven track record that's not local, but will become. So just thought I'd give a little context about Intertech Capital for folks. Intertech Capital is a venture capital firm started in Toronto. It has offices now in, I think it's Philadelphia and Silicon Valley, among other places. They've got a very successful track record in putting together venture capital funds that are focused on clean energy, clean transportation, and clean tech. Again, proven track record. That's what, to me, really signals we're going to be really successful here, because you've got partners with a proven track record. Their role is to really help us stand up the venture capital fund that is going to stand next to this to really connect investments to those entrepreneurs and startups of the future. So they're an important part of it. So I think we're really checking all the boxes with our partners. We've got the great academia, we have policymakers who are taking leadership and willing to let Sacramento and in some way in the Sacramento region be a test bed for the future, which is another thing that's really important. I think this is a great part of what will really define Sacramento, the Sacramento region going forward. So I'm really excited about it. You guys have been great leaders and supporters here. Is there anything you guys would like to add just in final comments?
Well, first, we can't have a great leader in zero emission technology without a good partner like SMUD. And I think the folks at SMUD and all the engineers and everyone there, they've not only focused on, as a ratepayer, keeping the rates low, but at supporting economic development. And that all goes to the efforts that I think a lot of us have been doing, is trying to help communities who are looking for a chance to get a part of that American dream, at the same time fighting for what we want for the future of our kids, which is air quality. Phil and I, we were talking about that. What's the future of his Godson and my son if we don't have clean air? And if we're not thinking about that smartly. But this is a huge opportunity for the region. And more interestingly enough, I think we're not reinventing the wheel, we're innovating the wheel by learning from all of the folks in Germany, from folks like Intertech and other folks who've been involved. Exciting opportunity, Arlen, for Sacramento.
I agree.
Yeah, and I would certainly echo what Vice Mayor Guerra just said about SMUD's leadership, partnership, not just in the context of this current initiative, but in past initiatives. It's amazing when we travel, even abroad, SMUD usually comes up in conversations in terms of being one of the more successful municipal utilities anywhere in the world, quite frankly. And then again, just to kind of echo what the Vice Mayor said, I'll end where I started. This is really about the future, right? It's the future of public health. It's the future of our economy. It's the future of how we get around. And to not take advantage of this would be a very, very unfortunate thing. And so we're going to do everything we can to capitalize on it, be very thoughtful about how we do that. Again, not reinvent the wheel. Certainly look to models that have proven to be successful. That's what our next trip is really about. And hopefully, we can come back on a future podcast and explain the successes as we really groom and nurture this relationship with all the partners that have been mentioned here today.
Well, I really appreciate both of you taking a leadership role in this. I think we all acknowledge it's important for our community, and we're all excited about it. So, for our audience, I want to make sure that there's some takeaways that they have around the benefits on what we're really talking about when we're talking about the California Mobility Center. So, it really is the place. It is really, as you said, it's about the future of technology, the future of policy-driven economic development in the mobility solution. It's a place to connect entrepreneurs, researchers, automotive companies, technology companies, and venture capitalists, and workforce of the future, and the students and those folks who are going to be helping us in the future. It's going to be a global consortium comprised of both public and private members, and it's going to be financially self-sustaining. It's not going to be something that we continually need to invest in. It's intended to be, at the end of the day, a financially successful organization that will drive business creation and the jobs of the future here. That concludes our conversation for the day. Again, thank you guys both for taking the time and for your leadership. I look forward to spending time with you in Germany and making this happen.
Thank you, Arlen.
Next, Barry Broome will connect the dots about why creating centers of excellence like the Mobility Center in the Greater Sacramento region are important to the region and the state.
Well, that was an exciting conversation. As you can see, our policymakers have a real conviction, for this space. So when you build an economic model where your policy leaders have a conviction, it's got a chance to elevate quicker. We got a great business leader in Arlen Orchard. SMUD's got a history of being one of the most modern utilities in America at renewables and lowering their carbon output. So you're taking legacy expertise, passion, energy, vision, and you're marrying it around the great things that we're good at. So now we'll hopefully work towards a partnership with the state of California, GoBiz, Lenny's leadership, Governor Newsom. Combine that by scaling this center so that it's actually a California center. If you noticed, it's not called the Sacramento Mobility Center, it's a California center. We hope to connect Riverside, Fresno, San Francisco, San Jose, and Silicon Valley to this center because like all good investment platforms, it's going to scale, which means it's going to go global. It's going to provide services. You heard about Penn Mobility. Penn Mobility is in Occam University. They're going to be our first partner on this. They've developed most of the hardware technology in Europe for all the major German automakers, whether it's electrifying powertrain facilities, building companies themselves. They've launched 4 companies. They employ almost 8,000 people in the Occam region. And we're going to be following up with a visit in the next month with Occam University and Penn Mobility. So now this mobility center is going to be statewide. It's going to be located in Sacramento. It's going to provide services region-wide, right? Terzo Power out of El Dorado County is already coming in as a partner. So even if your community is in Roseville, or if your community is in Lincoln, or Davis, or Woodland, or El Dorado Hills, why does this matter to you? You already have these kind of companies starting to emerge in your community. So how do they connect to Europe? They're going to do it through the California Mobility Center. Who's their European partner? Penn Mobility. What will Penn Mobility do? Provide them services and access to capital, people, and technology in Europe. So this is how a center of excellence works. It innovates, it creates new products, it perfects products, it creates services, and then it does it in a global manner. So I'm really excited about this prospect. We've got to put another $25 million together. So we're going to be working with other partners in the community, and then that will de-risk the model, meaning we can put the model in the ground without debt and a lot of obligations. I really do believe, in addition to this center, and at a later date, we'll go over Aggie Square, which is a separate center of excellence around life sciences, food, and health, which is developing in the Oak Park neighborhood under the leadership of Chancellor Gary May. That will be another center that will provide products and services for the entire region and allow the state of California's economy to scale. And that center will be built on our values, but also on technology and products that allow us to go to the future. So one of the challenges we have in our community, last 4 years, our economic growth has mirrored San Diego, Los Angeles, the state of California. So we've had a good 4-year run, but we're still not capturing our college graduates. And when you capture a college graduate, that usually creates 2 or 3 more jobs. So these modern technology centers are going to appeal to the 21, 22, 23-year-old graduates of our universities that don't want to go make cars in the Midwest. They don't want to go to Alabama and make rockets. You know, they want to stay home and they would do something that's exciting, something that's into the future, and something that reflects their values. So it's an exciting time for the Greater Sacramento area. I love the fact that we're all coming together on one page. I also love the fact that we're starting to be bold. Don't be afraid to be successful. It's okay not to be a government town. We can think big. We can share in the success of California. We can play our role in elevating our state. So I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. I want to thank Arlen Orchard. I want to thank Phil Cerna. I want to thank Eric Guerra for coming here today. But more importantly, I want to thank you for being a good citizen, being engaged, learning about your community, and making a commitment to the future of our region and the state of California. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for joining the Greater Sacramento Economic Council for the Download. The Greater Sacramento Economic Council, also known as GSEC, is the economic development catalyst organization for the Greater Sacramento region. It is a public-private partnership made up of 43 CEOs and 20 communities who collaborate and positively affect the region's and the state's business climate. We hope you tune in next time and find out how we are disrupting economic development in the region and the state of California.